briefly before we start the main part of the session. So Melissa.
Okay, so I'm Melissa. I'm a parent in Warwickshire. I've got 3 boys who are at mainstream school, and I sit as a representative of Parent Carer Voice. And I suppose in the context of the local offer, I've been working with Linda on kind of what it currently looks like and improvements that are being made and how we can make it even better. So that's my aspiration today is people are more aware of what it is and how they can give feedback and start using it more.
Thank you. And Jo?
Yeah, I'm Jo Rolls. I'm the manager of the Family Information Service, and it's Linda from my team who you will be introduced to in a second, who has been leading on the development of the Send local offer pages.
And Linda. Oh, you're on mute, Linda.
Apologies, classic faux pas, isn't it?
Oh, well, it's what we do.
I'm Linda. I work for the Family Information Service and I work mainly on the web pages, so for the children and families web pages and for the Send local offer web pages. So I've been working with Melissa and with a small team in terms of developing the local offer. I think that's
fantastic. I've just remembered one really useful thing that we've done in previous sessions that helped when we were trying to pick out the questions in the second part of the session. If you put a question in the chat at any point, if you can just put a Q, the letter Q at the beginning, it helps us pick them out from any other chat. But if you prefer to use a hand up function and actually have a conversation, then that is also fine. So Melissa, over to you, and Rachel, if you can share the slides.
Okay, we're a little bit, can we go back a couple? Yes, so we'll go to that one. So the previous slide to this, which was the outcome. So basically by the end of this webinar, this aspiration that we hope that you kind of know what the local offer is, why we've got the local offer, how it's created and stays up to date, how to find it and how to give feedback. And as Sam kind of introduced, we'll be taking different parts of that. So on the next slide, hopefully you recognise it's a picture of Leamington Library. So this is really just to put the give you the concept map. You know, I'm not an expert on this. I actually am coming at this from the point of a parent who has been in the position of trying to find information and wanting to at my fingertips find out what's available, who I can go and speak to, and just basically see what is out there. Our recent Warwickshire Parent Carer Voice survey, which some of you may have responded to, asked a very general question in there about do you know what the local offer is? And it was 50-50. Out of 189 respondents, 94 said no, they had no idea what the local offer was. And it's quite an abstract name. I'll explain kind of it is a mandatory LA requirement. They provide it, and that's why it's called the local offer, and I'll explain that later. And we think it's really important that you know it's a really important resource. So that's why it's mandatory. They have to provide it, and that more people could be using it. It's conceptually it's used as a collective term to bring together all of the useful information that's relevant to Send into one place. So really, if we start thinking about it as that library model, so one set of information, different formats, with support from, you know, in terms of the conceptually a librarian who can help you navigate it if you get stuck, if you can't find what you're looking for. You can also think of it as a school. It has a national framework. Like I say, it's mandatory for all local authorities to provide a local offer, but within there are different department specialisms. Subjects are presented slightly differently. You might not need to study them all. They might not be all of interest, but hopefully it's about finding the information you need when you need it. So again, another concept is really a portal, front door, rather than going to healthcare or social care separately and sifting through that knowledge and finding what's applicable to you. This is a way of kind of arriving at one place and being able to kind of as signpost and access it through this portal, as well as some unique content that's also created within it. Okay. So what is the local offer? So this is just reiterates the aim that we've covered. So it's bringing together useful information from all different, from education, healthcare and social care into one place. And this is about getting you using the local offer, finding the information you need, feeding back where you see gaps, and reaching out where you need help to find that information. So what does the local offer do. It isn't a single document in its own right, but as I've tried to say conceptually, it's more of this portal, this library of information. It's not quite a directory. In fact, it shouldn't just be a directory. It needs to be more informative of that. But kind of what's its purpose? What does it do? So it's designed to give children, young people and their families information about what services are likely to be available in their area. It's not a guarantee that that particular service will be available, but it should guide you what to expect, how to find it, how you can access it. It needs to be available on the internet, and most local authorities, that is the main way of accessing it. But there are, they have to make provision for people without the use of the internet to also access the local offer, and that's provided for. And like I said, it's not just a list of services, it's a broad range of information about the support available and gives you some more context, and it should be clear and easy to find. So why do we have it? The simple answer is because it's a legal requirement for the local authority to publish one. It's enshrined in the Children's and Families Act. That's why it exists. However, they can't just publish anything. There is guidance about what should be included. It needs to be relevant and quality information. This is an extract from the Code of Practice. So for those of in terms of how that complements what's in the law. So these are the guidance that's there to support whatever's laid down in the law. So this is the statute in the form of the Code of Practice. This gives more meat to the bones, more explanation, and makes it into a information support and how to apply the legal duty. So it takes what must be done and then gives some more guidelines to reiterate the law, but in a more accessible way to start putting together what the local offer should look and feel like. So what should it contain? It's quite a variety of information, quite comprehensive. This comes from the SEND Code of Practice. So we just looked at one section, which kind of gave the key purposes. This is from section 4.4. So the local offer must include provision in the local authority's area, and it must include provision outside of the local area that the local authority expects to be likely to be used by children and young people with SEND for whom they are responsible. It should include relevant regional and national specialist provisions, such as provision for children and young people with low incidence and more complex SEN. So this slide just tries to put that into context of what that actually means in terms of content. So it's not an exhaustive list, it's just illustrative of the type of information that you should be able to find. And like I say, some of that will be published and written for the local offer to give you that information because it's relevant purely to SEND, and some of that will be hosted in different areas on different sites. So you'll be going to potentially to a wider site hosting social care, but it will direct you to the bits that are relevant to your child and young person's needs and what your family needs as well. So who's involved? So this is where we all come in. Everybody's involved in the construction and the maintenance and making sure this is good quality information that's there. So the local authority is the lead organisation that has to publish the local offer and has to coordinate and maintain and review and keep it up to date. But all the other parties must be consulted. They have a duty to cooperate, fill in the gaps and make sure that that information is clearly available for families to be able to access. And as I've said before, some of that content is unique within the local offer, and some of it is signposted to the providers or the clinical commissioning group because it's more to keep it up to date. It's actually better. It's hosted and maintained by them. And then we come in families, so that there's a duty under the Children and Families Act to involve children, young people with SEND and their families in the local offer. Like I said before, identifying gaps, feeding back, supporting them in making sure that it's relevant, it is accessible and it's easy to use. And that's kind of why we're here today, to say this is what it is, this is where it is. If we can get more people understanding what it is and using it, we can actually get that more people interacting and feeding back on it. So once we have the local offer, and we do have a local offer, which Linda will go on to tell us what that is in the Warwickshire context, how should it be constructive? So it's collaborative. So by doing this, then we're trying to involve more parents, children, young people in developing and reviewing the local offer and cooperating the local authority must cooperate with those providing the services, and they must cooperate with the local offer to make sure that the information's on there. It should be accessible, so easy to understand, factual, jargon free, structured in a way that relates to you. So really thinking of yourselves as service users, that you can find the information that you need, and it makes logical sense that you can get hold of it when you need it, and that the whole thing is signposted and well publicised. And by doing this is part of publicising that it's there as a resource that you can use. It should be comprehensive, so you should be able to find what you're looking for, from education, health and social care from ages 0 to 25. Must include an eligibility criteria where relevant, and make it clear where to go for information, advice and support, as well as how to make complaints about provision or appeal against decisions. It should be up to date, so it's really important that, you know, as new services are commissioned and come on board, that they're also represented there, and transparent in terms of how decisions are made and who's accountable and responsible for them. So this is me summarising. I've just got 2 more slides left. So in summary, the local offer is something that has to be provided. In law, the local authority has to make provision, and all the providers that provide services that are included in the local offer have a duty to cooperate to ensure that that information is available and can be published. So conceptually, think of it kind of as a library or of things, or a portal, a doorway, which is hosted online through the website, to provide information in different formats. And there are people there as well that can help you find what you need if you do get stuck. So it's a collective term for grouping all of those things together that you might need to help you on your journey, and you can dip in and out of. So you'll be focusing, I'm guessing, just using my own journey as an example, on different areas at different times. You know, when you need information about transitions, you'll be looking in one particular area, and then that will be less relevant, and you'll be looking for something else at a different time. And that local office should be there to be accessed whenever you need it, to provide that information, and constantly evolving. So remember that every local authority has to publish a local offer. So if you're looking for a very, very specialist service or support, it might be worth looking at a neighbouring local authority local offer. It might be relevant if you're moving areas as well, and as a constantly up-to-date offer and information, then it's worth revisiting. So it might be at a certain point there wasn't a service that you needed, that may have been commissioned, something may have changed, and therefore that information is worth kind of, if you've looked at it before and not found what you needed, just to be aware that there is work ongoing all the time to maintain and improve this as well, and to make sure that information is there. So it's always worth checking in with. So the final slide was really saying, you know, we're looking for people to understand more that it's there and start interacting with it, and checking, and is that work worth it? So the LA do provide the local offer, and they're working on it every day, and they want to make it the best it can be, by getting people to proactively and positively engage with it. We want to help local families help themselves find the support they need when they need it. We want families to be well informed and supported, know what the clear pathways are, so they're not bounced around in the system, with a clear criteria for themselves to help them get the right support at the right time when they need it, but then also using it to identify gaps in the service and support commissioning, and identify services that are available that are not matching local needs as things change. So that was my bit. We're going to go on to watch a short video that will better than me summarise what the local offer is, before we look at it from a more of a Warwickshire perspective, with Linda talking us through it. So I'll hand over.
Rachel, can I just ask, when you shared your slides, did you select share the audio?
Just bear with me. I've just got to reshare because it's not working properly.
Yeah, that's all right. Rachel, whilst you get that work, I'll share the video directly from my
Yeah.
YouTube clip, okay?
Sorry.
And we'll see if that works. So here we go. This will be the local offer video, hopefully with sound.
You put the subtitles on as well, Sam. Somebody
Yeah.
asked.
We'd like to tell you about the Send local offer. It brings together in one place lots of really useful information and advice on services and resources for children and young people aged 0 to 25 with special educational needs or disabilities, and for their parents and carers. Every local authority must have a local offer, although each local authority's Send local offer will look slightly different. They will all be on a website which includes information about health and social care services and a list of what you can do locally. Some of the information will cover topics such as early years, education, schools and training, and other support available. It will also have information on local health and social care services, where to get help with travel, and any financial support, such as benefits you could be entitled to. You'll also find information on promoting independence, preparing for adulthood, and planning for the future. The local offer will also include details of local services. This will help you find out about places to go and things to do, all the clubs, activities and fun stuff available in the area. There will also be information on parent support groups, community groups and organisations children and young people and their parents can join. The Send local offer can help you make more informed choices about the future and live a more fulfilled life. Children, young people and parents can also be involved in the development of their area's local offer. Your feedback will always be welcomed on how it can be improved. If you can't access the internet at home, try your local library or speak to people at your school or local college.
Rachel, can you reshare your slides now? And I'll get rid of mine.
Okay, so the video you've just watched was a collaboration between the local areas, local offer coordinators in the West Midlands. So that was a collaboration between all the West Midlands local authority local offers to help give a clear explanation of what the Send local offer is and what you can expect to find. I will be doing a short background to Warwickshire's Send local offer and the redesign, and Joe's going to talk us through the accessibility and things that are on the landing page, and then I'll do a quick tour through the actual pages for you just to see sort of like what's on our Warwickshire local offer and how best to use it. Are you okay for me to share my screen for the landing page?
Yeah, that's fine. If you share, Linda, it should override.
Yeah. Okay, let me just do that now. Right, so is the landing page?
Yeah, we can see that.
Clear.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of background on the Send local offer, as you may be aware, this local offer was relaunched in October 2021 following a substantial redesign. And I just want to explain, why did we need to redesign the local offer? Well, following consultation and feedback with groups of professionals, parents and carers and young people, we found that 68% of users found the local offer hard to navigate, difficult to find the right information, and content was not often up to date or was missing. So we needed to create a new local offer that provided clear, comprehensive and accessible information about the provision available in Warwickshire, and that the provision is more responsive to local needs and aspirations by directly involving users, families with Send and the people who support them in its development and review. So this is really the beginning of our journey. It's a work in progress. We were a small team with SEND experience, either by virtue of being a parent of a child or children with SEND and or working within a SEND background. We used all the feedback we received from the initial group consultations undertaken in 2020 and further consultations and feedback in 2021 through online consultations, surveys and exercises, such as the navigation exercise, where we asked people to help sort information into relevant categories and also to use the categories to say where they would expect to find information. And this helped us to build this landing page, which we felt reflected the majority of users' views in terms of where they might expect to find different information and what might be useful ways to categorise that. Okay, are you happy, Jo, to talk about the accessibility features?
Yep, that's fine. So yeah, as I said before, I'm Jo and I manage the information service. And actually, Warwickshire Family Information Service is an information service for families with children on a wide range of subject areas. So the development of the local offer fitted well within the team. So although the pages are live, and this has been alluded to a couple of times today, there's still considerable work going on behind the scenes, especially some of the pages we know need developing, and Linda's working closely with a wide range of professionals to develop the information. So in terms of the landing page, it's been improved. It now includes a description of what a local offer is. It links to SENDIAS, which is information advice for SEND, and it's also got a search function, which Linda will talk about later. We've also got an accessibility tool on Reach Deck, which is the icon in the top right hand corner of the page of the little headphones, and clicking on that opens a toolbar. And from there, you can access the different functions of the accessibility tool. It will translate into lots of different languages. It will speak to you. So it will speak to you in English if you're on the English page, but it will speak to you in the different languages on the different pages. It also has a highlight function, so you can highlight just particular or just a small area of the page. So I guess what I would say to you is please go onto the web pages and have a play with that tool, and please provide us with feedback on that. And on the subject of feedback, you will see from the page that's being shared at the moment that we've got a feedback button at the top of the page, which is more generally about SEND provision in Warwickshire. But on each of the local offer pages, there is a feedback button, and that enables you to give quick feedback. And we've talked quite a lot this morning about wanting to hear from you. So please, if you're on a page and you can't find what you're looking for, or you do find what you're looking for, the information's not clear, or you need it to be better, please provide us with that feedback really quickly. If you can't find what you're looking for, it could be that it's there but in a different place, in which case we need to consider where it is, or is it not there at all, in which case we need to research and get it on there. So part of our the measurement of how good the local offer is around that, the feedback that we receive. So please go on and use that. And just a note on comms and professional briefings before I hand over to Linda. A flyer has been developed, and that's going to be shared widely over the coming weeks and months. There's a QR code on that leaflet, so people will be able to link directly to the local offer. But also, importantly, there's a phone number on there for the FIS team, for my Family Information Service team, for people who can't access the digital information. And we can either then support over the phone in a conversation, or we can print and send out, or we can meet up with people one-to-one and support them through that information. We're also going to be developing a roadshow offer. So we're going to be taking the local offer out in person, and we're going to be presenting it at various team briefings, team meetings, whether that be, so we're going to be attending all the Senko briefings in Warwickshire. We're going to be attending briefings in schools, and we're also going to have an extended version of the tour that Linda is going to take you through now. That's going to be available via Eventbrite, and people can sign on to that. It's going to be sort of a half-hour session whereby you're going to be taken on a guided tour through the pages, and that's going to be available from the summer term. And I'm going to hand over to Linda now to take you on that tour.
Okay, thanks, Jo. if I just explain the SEND search for just to start with on the landing page, this is in place of the old A to Z, which was on the old local offer, which was said to be limiting and confusing. And we now have a dedicated SEND search facility here. So rather than use the WCC search facility, which would take you through all the Warwickshire pages, you can now just search through the local offer. It's really useful because with SEND can be quite complex. There's lots of different words and expressions used. We don't always use the same ones, but hopefully by putting in the word that you do know or the word that you've heard and want to find out more about in the search, it will bring it up and you'll be able to find it within the categories. So basically, if I take you through the 12 broad categories, as explained earlier, these 12 categories have been redesigned using the feedback we received from our consultations and surveys and discussion groups. We wanted to bring together all the services and support offered in Warwickshire within broad sections that made sense to people, so that all the relevant information can be found in the same place. Earlier, information could be found in lots of different places. It could be quite confusing. You could find some transport, for example, in a transport section. You could find some transport in the local offer. You could find it in various different places. So now, by having transport in one section, what we've done is brought through from other sections all the sorts of transport that might be important or might be useful or needed when you're looking to find out information for yourselves. Education is another section which is really explains that. With education, there's your mainstream education section, and there was a local offer section. Well, sometimes, especially with the graduated approach, lots of SEND young people would attend mainstream schools. You needed both. It needed to be in one place. So now you've got how do you support learners with SEND in a mainstream educational setting, but you've also got all the information that might have been in these other places as well. One example of a parent that was finding things difficult when they were searching for post-16 education for their child was that whilst in the post-16, in the SEND local offer section, they could find post-16 education training, but they didn't find the mainstream post-16 education. So now it's actually in the same place. You can find the information you want post-16, you know, whether it's mainstream, whether it's more specialist. If I go back to this section one moment, with supporting learners with SEND in a mainstream section, we've got the section on the top here. Now there's two subsections to this. This one is actually in the process of being updated. So this is aimed at families, you know, what sort of support is there? And it will be called mainstream education rather than just school in the updated version. So, you know, what do you do? What can the school or the education facility support with? How does it happen? Who's a SENCO? What do they do? All that information will be available. So whilst you've got a brief run through here, the pages are nearly ready to go up. There will be more information about all those topics. There'll be information on preparing for meetings with education, and there'll be information on the specialist services that might be involved with your young person. Okay, so the aim has been to take a graduated approach. So you may find that things have been imported from different places to be in the same section, as I've just explained. A case in point, I can show you the early years section, which is a good example of a graduated approach, really. So if we go into the early years section, the first piece will explain what support is available for children aged 0 to 5, goes through the developmental milestones, finding the right support, which section might you want to use, and tips for preparing for appointments there. And then we've got graduated sections here. So I need help with, which will be the starting point. You know, you might find that there's some additional problems or needs or issues that you want to think about. You can go into the I need help with and find sort of the area that you're needing to find help with. Now, these will mainly have been imported from the children and families pages, because there's an awful lot of information on there that goes right from the universal starting point up towards more targeted support services there. If you have more complex, you've got more complex needs, or you already have used this information and you need some more help, you've got more targeted services in the extra help, and you've also got who are the specialist support services that can be involved. Okay, so if I take you back to the main pages again, what it's hopefully showing is that the SEND local offer is not just about high-end need or for those with an EHC plan or a diagnosis. It should provide information, advice and support for all families with additional needs. Okay, so the first category here is really what is SEND. If someone's very new to SEND, again, like I said before, it's complex. There's lots of terms. It's not necessarily user friendly. Does my child have SEND? How do I know? So you can have a look in this section and you can find an explanation of what is SEN. SEN stands for Special Educational Needs. What is SEND? That would be and/or disabilities. And we've used the code of practice to explain what is the definition of SEN and SEND, and the four main categories that the SEND code of practice use. There's also a short video on a definition of disability, and we've also talked about English not as a first language. So some children with English not as a first language will have SEN needs, and some may just need language support, but that's just explaining that. And then you've got first steps if you think your child may have SEN. What do you do next, basically? Okay. Then to take you through a brief run through of some of the other categories, SEND and inclusion is more the strategic picture. It's information about our wider SEND change programme, our local area SEND inspection and inspection report. I've talked through some of these other categories. Now, some of the categories are brand new. They weren't in the old local offer, but they are statutory requirements, like, for example, health, for example, social care. So we've brought together the relevant information from social care into the SEND section. We've also created a health section here. Now, health's quite complicated, and some of the information you find in the health section, you may think perhaps belongs education or somewhere else. So we're hoping to make links clear so that you can find it in all the places. But again, if you did use the search, you would find it in here. So health and SEND really talks you through how does health help? How does health help families with additional needs? So it explains sort of early help. It talks you through the dimensions of health and well-being, who to talk to, what are the NHS services, and attending appointments. Okay, so it gives an overview really, and then health conditions is a useful sort of section just for sort of, there's a jargon buster, there's an A to Z of health conditions, and there's also information on rare conditions and undiagnosed conditions, just to help. In the health section, we've also got areas like the social and emotional mental health and well-being. We've got what's the children's health services, and what are the other areas that can help within health. Neurodevelopmental concerns is one that's in sort of development still at the moment. It's quite a difficult term. Not everybody's familiar with it, but it is one that's becoming much more used now. And we've put an indication of the kinds of neurodevelopmental difficulties that might come under this section. If you then click into the section, there's two sections again. I'll talk through this one in a little minute. Neurodevelopmental conditions. It describes what they are, what kind of conditions might be classed as a neurodevelopmental condition, what is the service, how do you get help, where's there more information. And it goes through adults as well as children, because many adults might not be diagnosed and might want to find out more too. And then it lists some of the main conditions with a bit more information for each one. So say, for example, you wanted to find out about autism. You can find out a little bit more about autism here. You can watch a video to get a bit more of an understanding about autism. And then you can find what support is there, sort of pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis for autism. And for adults again as well. There's a lot more useful information on the right hand side, which can be dipped in and out of, once people feel ready. It's just about sort of not overwhelming people when they're sort of starting out on their journey, really. So that's health. With lots of them, I mentioned with the autism, there's a film, there's a film or video for quite a few of them, which just gives an overview, and it's a different way of sort of explaining what a condition is. In terms of some of the other sections, briefly, we have send resources, which is quite a useful area. It used to be called send documents, and it used to have the EHC needs documents templates on, where they're in a separate section now. But you can also find all the local statements and policies. You can find useful resources for parents and practitioners to try out to support their young person. There's the post-16 information, and there's also all the national send legislation and guidance. So when people talk about the Code of Practice or the Children and Families Act and things like that, you can find it in that section. And then along the bottom here, we've got a section on information for young people, which is still under development. What we've done so far at the moment is use the preparation for adulthood categories mainly. So we've got the planning for adulthood, which sort of explains about sort of preparing, you know, as your young person gets older, preparing for adulthood. And then we've got the main preparing for adulthood categories, so learning and employment, independent living, community and social activities, and good health. And we've also added transport as a separate one because it was quite big, and knowing your rights and decision making. But I would say that this is an area in development. We're going to need to work with young people and with their parents and carers to make this more user friendly. It's interesting that I did attend a youth conference just recently, and some of the young people, it was gratifying to hear that a lot of the young people, when asked about the local offer and what kind of information they would want on it, they did not want to use Google, they did not want to use social media. They would go to a respected person in the first instance. If they were in education, they would go to student support or a teacher they trusted, or they would ask their families and they would talk to their friends. So that was really useful information to know. This one again will need to be developed further, but to start with, we've got information on, you know, where can you find impartial information, advice and support, where can you get support for family and parenting, for carers in the community, parent carer voice, and short breaks, where can I find short breaks. So that's in that parent carer section. Then if you're not happy with the decision, that's a statutory requirement to have that on the local offer. They used to, it can be quite complicated, and it can be different in terms of whether it's mediation, whether it's a complaint, whether it's a tribunal. So we've brought that together in one place again. If it's a local authority comment, then there's a place for it. If it's a transport decision, there's a place, and if there's a school placement, there's a place. If not, have a look in if you're not happy with the decision, and you'll find how to make a school complaint. You'll find all about mediation and tribunals and what you can do. There's also a video on there about sort of like what is the tribunal process at the bottom there. You can find out who the mediators are and contact a mediator, and you can find out what you can actually appeal about. There's also making a health complaint and children's and adults social care complaints. And last but not least, there is get involved, have your say. So these sorts of information, what you have said, what we've done about it, links to all these parent care and webinars, and more on the get involved, have your say, and that will be developed also. In terms of sort of ongoing development, the Send Local Offer web pages are the primary source of information, advice and support services for Send in Warwickshire. The content must remain useful, accessible, current and relevant. So key staff resource is committed to the maintenance and continuous improvement of the local offer. And as a takeaway, as Melissa said at the beginning of the local offer isn't a guarantee that a particular service will be available, but it should guide you to what is available and how to access it, and it will identify where there are gaps, and we can then do something about it. It's still very much a work in progress. We want it to be a useful resource, and we value any feedback, good or bad, so that we can help, you know, develop it and make it a useful resource for all. And then we're basically open to any questions. And I'll stop sharing my page.
That's great. I mean, the point is that it's a resource that's only as useful as the work that goes into developing it, and the feedback from families is absolutely critical to that, isn't it? So we're at the point now where we can take questions. You can pop them in the chat. Invite anybody who wants to put their camera back on. The recording that goes online will stop before this point. At the point that Linda says that we'll invite questions, the recording will be cut off at that point in order to share on the website. So any questions, people can put their cameras on. You can use the raise hand function at the top. There's a little face with a hand up like this, and if you click on that, there's a hand raise function. So has anybody got any questions?